She was drinking on her own and you sat next to her at the counter. She looked up at you slightly annoyed. "Excuse me, do you mind?" she said, trying to not sound rude, clearly failing. I said, "Do you mind if I drink in peace?" She scoffed and turned back to her drink and started to sip it slowly. You could tell she was annoyed at your presence. She was now drinking her drink faster and faster as she was getting more agitated by you sitting next to her. She started to mutter under her breath, but you couldn't make out what she was saying. She stopped and looked at you again. She was now glaring at you with a look of pure hatred. "What do you want?" she said coldly. "Yes, I do," she said bluntly. "You just sat next to me and started talking to me like you know me. It's annoying." "Well, I don't need your greetings. I just want to be left alone," she said, taking another sip of her drink. She sighed and looked back at her drink. She seemed to be lost in thought as she was drinking. You noticed that she had a bow and arrow on her back. You order your drink, and the bartender brings it to you. You look back over to Lyriel, and she is still drinking and looking lost in thought. You notice that she is now drinking at a faster pace, and her eyes are starting to look a bit glazed over. You finish your drink, and and Lyriel is still drinking. She is now on her third drink, and her eyes are definitely glazed over. She is now slurring her words, and her movements are becoming more erratic. The bartender brings you your strawberry daiquiri, and you take a sip. You look over at Lyriel again, and she is now on her fourth drink, and her eyes are now completely glazed over. She is now slurring her words, and she is now leaning on the counter for support. She looked up at you, and her eyes were now bloodshot, and she was now leaning on you for support. "I'm fine," she said. Her words were now completely slurred. She scoffed and laughed a bit. "I'm fine, I can handle my alcohol," she said. She was now leaning on you even more, and she was starting to get a bit too close. She laughed again, and she was now leaning on you completely. "I can handle it. I can handle anything," she said. Her breath was now starting to smell of alcohol. She laughed again, and she looked up at you with a drunken smile. "Nothing. I'm just having a good time," she said. Her eyes were now starting to close, and she was leaning on you even more. She was now completely leaning on you, and her eyes were now fully closed. She was now starting to sway back and forth, and she was starting to mumble under her breath. She opened her eyes and looked up at you with a drunken grin. I said, "I'm having a good time," she said. Her words were still slurred, and she was now leaning on you even more. The bartender looked over at Lyriel and he sighed. "Yeah, she comes here a lot. She's a bit of a troublemaker, though. She always gets drunk and causes trouble," he said. The bartender shrugged. "She's always getting into fights with people or causing a scene. She's always drunk, and she's always causing problems. I try to keep her out of trouble, but it's hard when she's this drunk," he said. The bartender looked over at Lyriel and he sighed again. "You should probably get her home. She's going to be a mess in the morning," he said. The bartender shrugged. "Well, you could try to get her to tell you, or you could just take her home with you. She's a bit of a handful, though. She might not be too happy about that," he said. You continue drinking your strawberry daiquiri, and you watch as Lyriel continues to drink her drinks. She is now completely drunk, and she is starting to get a bit too close to you. She is now leaning on you completely, and she is starting to get a bit touchy. She looked up at you with a drunken grin and she laughed. "I'm not going home. I'm having too much fun," she said. She was now leaning on you even more, and she was starting to get a bit too close. You move away from her, and she gets a bit upset, and she starts to pout. "Why are you moving away from me?" she said. Her voice was now slurred, and she was still leaning on the counter for support. The bartender looks at you and nods. "I'll make sure she doesn't get another drink," he said. He then walks over to Lyriel and he starts to talk to her. "You're done drinking for tonight. You're too drunk," he said. Lyriel looks up at the bartender and she scoffs. "I'm not done drinking yet," she said. Her voice was now even more slurred and she was starting to get angry. You watch as the bartender tries to convince Lyriel to stop drinking, and she keeps arguing with him. She is now getting more and more angry, and she is starting to raise her voice. She is now standing up, and she is now starting to get in the bartender's face. Lyriel turns to you and she glares at you. "Don't tell me to calm down," she said. Her voice was now even louder and she was now getting in your face. She scoffs and she backs away from you. "I'm not going to get out of your face until you admit that I'm right and that I can handle my alcohol," she said. Her voice was still loud and she was now starting to get even more angry. She looks at the glass of water and she scoffs. "I don't want water. I want another drink," she said. She was now getting even more angry, and she was starting to get in the bartender's face again. She scoffs again and she laughs. "I'm not going to puke, I'm fine," she said. She was now getting even more angry, and she was now starting to shout at the bartender. She laughed again, and she shook her head. She laughed again, and she shook her head. "I'm not going to have a hangover. I can handle my alcohol," she said. She was now getting even more agitated, and she was now getting really close to the bartender's face. You order a glass of water for yourself, and you watch as Lyriel continues to argue with the bartender. She is now getting even more angry, and she is now starting to shout at the top of her lungs. She is now getting really close to the bartender's face, and she is starting to get physical. You drink your glass of water, and you watch as Lyriel continues to argue with the bartender. She is now getting even more physical, and she is now pushing the bartender away from her. The bartender is trying to keep her away from him, but she is now getting really aggressive. You finish your glass of water, and you watch as Lyriel continues to argue with the bartender. She is now getting even more aggressive, and she is now starting to hit the bartender. The bartender is now trying to get away from her, but she is now chasing him around the bar. push her away from the bartender and you dodge her attack. She is now even more angry, and she is now trying to hit you. She is now getting really close to you, and she is now trying to punch you in the face. You continue to dodge her attacks. She falls to the ground, and she is now lying on the floor. She is now really angry, and she is now trying to get back up. She is now shouting at you, and she is now trying to hit you again. Pick up your bag, and you walk out of the bar. You hear Lyriel shouting at you as you leave, and she is now trying to get up and follow you. You request a ride back home, and a few minutes later, a car pulls up and the driver asks where you want to go. You tell the driver your address, and he starts to drive you home. You look out the window and you see that Lyriel is now outside the bar, and she is now yelling at the top of her lungs. She is now looking around for you, and she is now starting to get really mad. You sigh in relief, and you feel a bit of relief that you are now away from Lyriel. You look out the window again, and you see that she is now walking around the bar looking for you. She is now getting really angry, and she is now starting to shout even louder. You are now out of sight of the bar, and you feel even more relieved. You feel like you are finally safe from Lyriel and her drunken rage. You look out the window again, and you see that she is now still looking for you, but she is now getting tired, and she is now starting to walk away. The car pulls up to your house, and the driver stops in front of your house. You get out of the car, and you thank the driver for the ride. You walk inside your house, and you close the door behind you. You are now safe from Lyriel and her drunken rage.